great meeting until this point, and we are now getting into even higher heights. What we heard until now was excellent presentation about research advancement, ideas about implementation of the research, and now we are in a panel which would like you see the title here. How can we promote research and development for pediatrics and neurological disorder and rare disease? What are the next steps? And we have a great panel which is very diverse in the background from different directions. I will introduce our panelists. So the first and also one who will give a short presentation is Professor Lilach Shalev-Mevorach. She's the head of Attention Lab in the School of Education and School of Neuroscience at Tel Aviv University. Her research focuses on assessment and training of attention and cognitive control in various populations. She developed novel cognitive training programs and assessed their impact combining neurophysiological brain imaging. We heard just before, it's very important. Psychological measures. Her basic research studies are translated to applied tools which are currently used in Israel, the UK, Japan, and Brazil. Our second panelist is Amos Shapira. I almost said Professor Amos Shapira. As many of you know, he was the president of Haifa University, and before that he had major activity in Israel economy, in Cellcom, and Kimberly Chogla before, and others. He was a very important position, was the head of the Friends Association of Tel Aviv University, in which he did a superb job and left us to Haifa, fortunately for Haifa University and less fortunate for us, but today is representing a patients organization as the president of Alut. We heard a lot about autism. The next panelist is Professor Manuel Trachtenberg, which too many titles to mention, but until recently he was a member of the parliament, a Knesset member. Before that, he was in charge of probably the most, one of the most important organization of the Israeli economy, which is, as those of you who are not Israelis, it's called VATAT. It's the to translate it is the Planning and Budgeting Committee, which sounds a very minor thing, but it's the organization which funds all academic research in Israel with a budget of about 10 billion shekels. So it was a very major, and before that he had many other positions in government and other institutes. And finally, we have Yael Greenberg-Cohen from Madison Ventures. I have only a short description, but please. So Yael is a biotech analyst in Madison Corporate Development Team, leading rare disease field, which is very much relevant to what we discussed today in all for drugs. Her statement, which is a strong believer in patient-focused thinking and friendly pharma. I hope we will hear more about it. We'll start with a short presentation by Lilach, and then we'll have the panelists coming to the stage. Lilach, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. So indeed, it was fascinating to hear the previous talks, and I'm going to describe really briefly, so we'll have chances to get some important discussions, etc. I'm going to talk a little bit about quite a pilot study, but we truly think it's very, very encouraging. In this study, we investigated the effect of attention training on academic performance of children with autism. This study was conducted in the UK in two primary schools. My UK collaborators are there from the University of Birmingham. So again, very, very briefly, as you all probably know, autism is defined by persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction, and restricted, repetitive, and stereotyped patterns of behavior, interest, or activities. And at least one of these characteristics should appear before the age of 3. It is important to note that atypical attention is not one of the defining characteristics, core autism symptoms. However, we know from various reports, previous reports, that approximately 50% of kids that are diagnosed with autism also meet diagnostic criteria for ADHD. And even more than that, more than 50% show at least some of the symptoms, some of the ADHD-like behavior symptoms. Taken together, this could be the result of either the fact that autism and ADHD are highly comorbid, or alternatively, it could be the result of autism as a disorder that is intrinsically involves attention deficits. Obviously, both explanations can co-occur. Now, when I'm talking about attention, we heard also earlier today several times the term attention. So when I'm saying attention, I'm referring to a complex cognitive system which is essential for learning and self-regulation for everybody, for each and every individual. Also, obviously also for kids with autism. Now, it is important to note that the attention system is comprised from different networks, different functions of attention, and each of these components in the attention system contributes different aspects, different role to the complex role of reading. We heard earlier the process of reading that involves so many different skills, and not just the component elements, but also the very precise integration between these components. So we do believe, and not just believe, we're doing so. So we invest a lot of effort in many of our previews in order to come up with a comprehensive assessment of attention functioning. I'll briefly mention the three major attention functions. So first of all, sustained attention, your ability to stay relatively alert by the end of the day, being able to focus attention over a long period of time. This is really important when we should be engaged in monotonous long tasks and routine activities. A different component, different attention function is what we call selective spatial attention. This is this refers to our ability to focus attention on a very restricted spatial area, being able to suppress adjacent distractors. For instance, when all of us will try to search for a red O, okay, among these distractors, we'll have to search. And in order to do it effectively, we'll have to focus attention on a restricted area, being able to suppress, to inhibit the processing of the distractors in order to find the red O. Okay, so that's a different function of attention. And the last attention function that I'll mention is executive attention, which is a very, very important function of attention. Among other things, executive attention allows us to resolve conflicts between different bits of information, conflicts between emotions, conflict between competitive responses. Okay, for instance, a very, very simple task that already involves executive attention is when we have to process compound figures like the one I presented here. So you can perceive the global configuration of the figure, right, the square, but you can also, if I'll ask you, you can identify the local elements, okay? For most of the people, the global configuration will pop up first. However, for instance, for kids with autism, some of them will be stuck and will be captured by the local elements. And we think one of the reasons why it is so difficult for them to perceive and to integrate the elements is the fact that they are captured. Their attention is captured on the most salient aspect for them. For instance, if I'll ask you to identify this global configuration, also for most of us, it will be more effortful if I'll ask you to report the global configuration. So we can very easily affect the balance between the more salient and the less salient aspect of a compound figure or a multidimensional figure. So, in our previous long series of study, we developed together with colleagues a battery of attention assessment tasks, and we used this battery to identify and to come up with a comprehensive attention profile. And not only the assessment is important, but also, as Tzipi mentioned before, also how can we help different population, how can we help them to become more effective learners. So to do that, over a decade ago, again together with my colleagues, we developed a computerized progressive attention training system that was aimed to improve attention function of children with ADHD. But then, in the case of ADHD, attention deficits are the core symptoms and the core deficits of the disorder, and it's not the same in the case of autism, as I already mentioned. So our main question here in this study that I'm going to briefly report was whether, in the case of autism, whether attention training, the same attention training that we used in our previous studies, whether it will be helpful for the academic performance of children with autism. I must admit I was very skeptical. Now, it's a pilot study that was conducted. It included a small number of children. We used two groups. One of them completed between 12 to 14 sessions of attention training using the CPAT. The other small group just had standard computer games. And it is also important to note that the training sessions were administered in the schools by experimenters who came from the university. Now, the results are really, really encouraging, and actually they mimic our original results with ADHD kids. You can see here a significant improvement, but also only in the CPAT group. The improvements were on non-verbal intelligence test, reading comprehension, math, and a rate of copying. Now, it is also very, very important for me to emphasize that the training did not include at all reading materials or any academic materials. The CPAT is based on attention training. I mean, just very simple attention tasks, relatively simple. Also, here I can show you the individual data. So you can see again, black. This is the CPAT group, and gray, this is the computer game group, the active control group. I don't have time to elaborate on that, but this is extremely important to include active control group in non-pharmacological treatments. So the data looked really, really convincing to our as I said, I was completely surprised. Also, when you look at the interviews with the teachers, you see quite nicely a nice nice correlation between the assessment of and the impression of the teachers and the outcomes of the tests that were administered. So, to conclude, This was a sort of a proof of concept demonstrating that attention training can have a positive impact on academic and nonverbal cognitive performance of children with autism. Importantly, such a training can take place and can work out effectively within the schools. And here I'm just showing you very, very similar results in a study, in an ongoing study. Dr. Mayra Espanyol, who was the one who initiated the study, she's now back home in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Different country, different children, some of them severely, by the way, severely impaired, and the very same results. Again, this is very encouraging, and it makes us believe this is something that should be elaborated, should be implemented in the curriculum of schools in wherever around the world. So thank you very much.